Hi hunters and welcome back. Guess what day it is today? It's NaNoWriMo Day. Ah! Yeah, if you don't know, which I'm pretty sure everybody knows at this point, NaNoWriMo is National Novel Writing Month. And the idea of NaNoWriMo is that you write 1,000 words-ish of your novel every day, and within a month, 30 days, you will have 30,000 words, which is the length of a short novel. The idea is to just, throw all caution to the wind and just write, and then you'll have the first draft of a novel in 1 month, which would be absolutely incredible if any of us could truly stick to it. I know that some people have. I know that people have achieved amazing things in NaNoWriMo month. Myself, I often find I'm making excuses and being too busy to write 1,000 words every day, and then one day I'll write like 7,000 words in one day, and then I'll feel like, oh, I don't have to do it for a week now, and then I'll just forget, and then it'll be in December. But this year I am determined to participate in National Novel Writing Month, because I don't know if anybody knows this about me or not. I think some people do, but I have a degree in writing. I have a university degree, which I graduated top of my class, highest grades that my course had ever seen at my university, in creative writing. And I've never used it for anything, which is really disappointing. I've done various academic and business writing over the years. I've written articles about businesses I've worked for. I used to be an education writer for a company. I was writing books on how to get your child into the best school and stuff like that. So I might not be a published fiction writer, but technically. So the first thing I wanted to get into before I even mention any of my tips, the most important thing that I have learned over the years is that writer's block isn't real. I know, right? And if writer's block isn't real, then we can beat it. Writer's block is history. And you're probably wondering, how can I say that writer's block isn't real when people face writer's block every single day? Well, it's simple, and I have experienced it myself, but it's not called writer's block. In fact, it's not even called creative block or creator's block or anything that you want to call it. It's something that everybody in the world experiences, no matter whether they're a creative person or a business person, a scientist, someone who cleans floors. Everybody experiences it. It's just periods of low productivity. By sticking a label on it and pretending that writer's block or creator's block is something special and unique to us, we're making it special, we're making it unique, and we're giving ourselves an excuse not to do our work. Like any hobby or profession, writing is just a skill, and skills take practice and time. You've got to put your back into them. And so hopefully with this arsenal of strategies and tips and tricks, you'll just be tapping away at no time. All of these are about prose writing, but obviously, like I said, I've done professional writing, and they can be applied to anything. Prose or poetry or essay writing. So what I wanted to talk about today, ahead of NaNoWriMo, on this first day, if you're joining me, or just if you're a writer in general, whether you're writing fan fiction or original fiction, poetry, anything, this can probably help you, is my top 10 tips for getting past writer's block. Tip number 1, start in the middle of something. If you find yourself sat down staring at a blank page with no idea what words to put on that page to start your story, then just don't start at all. I bet if you stop right now, you've got a really good idea in your head for a particular plot point or a conversation or something that happens further down the line. Just write that. Just start with an opening line of dialogue for a conversation that you think should happen in 5-10 pages time. Or just start in the middle of the action. Start in something you've been planning for chapter 3 and just see where it takes you. It might be that once you start writing that, you come back and you just know exactly what to write for chapter 1. Or it could be that you discover that chapter 3 was a much better chapter 1 anyway, and that you should have started there straight away. Besides, this is a great chance to get to know your characters and see how they do in certain situations. Anyone would be hard-pressed to describe the reactions and attitudes of a stranger that they'd never spoken to or met or seen in action. So just take your characters out for a test run and see how they feel, see how they respond to certain situations. Use prompts if you need to. And you'll find yourself much better prepared for writing them in the actual scenarios you want to put them into. Which brings me to my second point. Number 2, develop your story. If you can't write prose or paragraphs right now, you still should put something on paper. It's much better to write extensive notes about your world and your characters and their interests and things that happen, how the laws of physics work in the universe that you're writing, than it is to write nothing at all. Expand the world that your story takes place in, expand your characters, add new ones, just make bullet points and make descriptions and write down words that you might want to use when you're writing. If you've only got a vague idea of what you want to write, then do a brainstorm diagram of all the different stories that it could lead into, and then see if you can combine any of them into one story. There's always some way to start. And if you really, really want to write and you've got no ideas whatsoever, Google search a writing prompt and create a protagonist for that prompt. You might not like the idea that you come up with enough to turn it into a full novel, but there's no such thing as a bad idea. And that takes me to my third point. Point number 3, force yourself to write terribly. If you can't seem to get anything good down on paper, then stop trying to be good. Whilst this one might sound more counterproductive than it is productive, it's actually not at all. Once you've got a few hundred words down on paper, you've got a starting point you can build on. And besides, no first draft was ever spotless. No one gets to see your writing until you permit them to see your writing. And I'm pretty sure that everybody's writing is twice as good as they think it is. I think it's a plague that creative people all share, that we look at something we've done and we're so familiar with it that we just don't like it and we don't think it's good. But someone else who looks at it with fresh eyes looks at it and they think it's brilliant because they've never heard this story before. They've never seen those sets of words strung together in that way before. And if it really, really is terrible, at least you've written more than you would have written if you hadn't written anything at all. Number 4, create a dedicated space that's perfect for your writing. If you've got a whole room, use that. If you've just got a corner or a desk or just a tray on your bed, use that. Procrastination and distraction are the death of creativity, and writing requires a lot of concentration to get into. You know, you might think you should be able to sit down and write anywhere, but if there's noises in the background, if there's someone talking, if your phone's going off, if you're checking social media, you're not going to be able to concentrate on writing. And creating a dedicated space that both calms you down and inspires you, that can be absolutely key to getting the writing flowing. Maybe you want to decorate it in a way that fits with the kind of writing that you're doing right then. I know that in the past, especially in university, I would make a space for writing that suited the story that I was doing. So if I was writing a detective novel, I might put some objects there that made me feel in the mood of the main character. Or fantasy, I might string up some, fantasy decorations. Whatever really suits. I know that Stephen King listens to heavy metal when he's writing horror stories. If that works for you, then that works for you. Anything that gets your brain moving and your creativity pumping is just great when it comes to getting over a period of creative stubbornness. Number 5, maybe you find that you can't even put notes down on a page because you've got such great writer's block. Well, then try visualizing your ideas. Mood boards, for example, are a really great way to get your ideas down. Anything that stimulates you, from landscapes to objects, color schemes, just abstract ideas. Personally, I use Pinterest for mood boards, but in university I did used to print pictures out and I'd stick them to the wall, whatever works. And then all I need is just one glance over at them and suddenly I found some inspiration again. Number 6, read, learn, and expand your horizons. Stephen King famously once wrote, "If you want to be a writer, you must do 2 things above all others. Read a lot and write a lot." Which is the honest truth. I took a lot of inspiration from Stephen King's books and also his writing advice. How can you know what constitutes good writing if you're not reading good writing and bad writing in equal proportions to see what you do and don't like? Similarly, writing what you know about, which is always a good start, is going to be pretty dull if all you know about is just yourself and your life exactly as you live it. You need to expand your horizons by trying new things, going new places, talking to people, learning about other people's experiences in order to write about other people's experiences. I find that reading non-fiction books really helps inspire me because I learn a lot about other people and other places in the world that I might not have the chance to experience myself. By the same merit, do try and get out there and have these experiences for yourself. I mean, maybe you can't go jetting off to climb temples in Southeast Asia or swim with sharks or something like that, but in your hometown you're going to find a wealth of experiences. Perhaps it's just a young couple arguing in a coffee shop. Maybe it's just a conversation you overheard in line at the gas station. As a writer, you must look at yourself and the people you know and the world around you as a resource. You must use everything you can get. Oh, and if that's not working, then Point number 7, steal other people's ideas. Writers do it all the time. I mean, look at how many times the Cinderella story has been retold, or how many writers have taken the character of Dracula and put him in their work. I'm not saying plagiarize, because I really don't approve of plagiarism, but I am saying take inspiration from things you've read and tell it yourself. One of my favourite writing teachers, Chuck Wendig, he wrote an article recently on his blog about how originality is so overrated, because everything that is original can be broken down into a mash of other things combined, and it can make your original ideas feel really unoriginal. It's really disheartening. But actually, the truth of it is, the thing that's original about your writing is the person writing it. Don't feel ashamed of taking other ideas and putting your own spin on it, because no one else in the world is going to be able to write that story. Without a little idea replication, we wouldn't even have Harry Potter, for example. J.K. Rowling has lent on Lord of the Rings so much, and everybody loves the Harry Potter books, but it's not hard to see all the similarities between the characters. Bask in the creativity of other people who've come before you, because sometimes you just need to lean on other people's genius for a while. Number 8, reorder your plot with this stupidly simple technique. This is something that I came up with myself at university when I was trying to write my final dissertation piece. I was just so full of plot holes in that story that I was just desperate to find a way to fill them up. So if you've got plot holes to fill in a story, or you've only got a basic skeleton of idea and you don't know how to flesh out the middle, this one is a real killer. Basically, you start by just writing out your plot points. Just write down every single piece of plot that you already know on a piece of paper, like a scrap of paper or something, and just scatter them over a flat surface. You're going to want quite a big space for this if you're writing novels. So say you know that at some point in the middle of the story you want a character to hop onto a bus and meet the love of their life. Just write that down on a piece of paper. Just hops onto a bus, meets the love of their life. And you know at the end of the story you want the two of them to drive off into the sunset together. Just write down, the couple drive off into the sunset together. Once you've got all of your ideas written down, you just start to lay them out like a timeline of events. If you've got plot holes, just leave a gap in the middle between the pieces of paper. And if you're not sure where a particular scene wants to go, just leave it off to the side. Then you might find that when you finish laying them out, some of those scenes that you've got off to the side will just slot really nicely into the timeline. Or you might find that you don't have to fill those gaps at all, and you can just close those gaps and skip from one scene that you know about to the next. Or maybe you find that you completely want to reorder your plot. Maybe it starts with a couple driving off into the sunset, and then 2 weeks down the line, one of them realises they've made a mistake when they bump into the real love of their life on a bus. Suddenly you've got a very different story and no plot holes. If nothing else, this exercise is bound to give you a new perspective on your work, but you might just find that you already have a whole story ready to be written. Number 9, overstimulation is a killer. Do something boring. Thinking creatively for more than a few hours at a time can just exhaust your brain. And when you're mentally exhausted, you completely run out of steam, particularly when you're writing. You've got to do something boring. Do you ever find that you have your best ideas when you're driving a car, or standing in the shower, or on the toilet, just anywhere that you can't immediately get to a piece of paper and write? Because I have that all the time. Basically, doing something that doesn't demand too much mental stimulation and effort is the best way to recharge your creativity. If you're lost for words, take a break and rearrange your bookshelves. If you're stuck for ideas, tackle the pile of washing up. Declutter your whole house if you have to. If you free up your space and you free up your environment, you're going to free up your mind. You might also have writer's block because you're working too hard and you're not taking care of yourself. Remember that self-care is right up there amongst the things that all of us should really pay attention to. But especially if you're doing something creative, you don't want to burn out. Remember to stop, to wash your face and go and have something to eat and have yourself a drink of water or a big cup of coffee. I will take the big cup of coffee. And finally, final point, and just the easiest point of all of them, number 10, when you finish writing, stop writing in the middle of a sentence. Does that sound hard at all? Because it's not. It's the easiest point on the entire list. If you stop writing in the middle of the sentence, even when you know what the end of the sentence is going to be, then when you step away from your work, you haven't run out of ideas. Next time you step back to your work, even if you can't remember the exact wording of what you were going to say to finish the sentence, you still know how to put the next 3 or 4 words down on the page. And as soon as you put 3 or 4 words down, you're no longer stuck not knowing what to put down on the page. You know, if you only ever finish when you completely run out of words to put down, then you're creating a problem for yourself. And if you're worried that you're going to forget the things that you want to write down some notes for yourself, because then you can come back and just look at your section of notes and think, yes, that's exactly what I was going to write, and just get straight into it without even stopping and worrying about writer's block. And just like that, your writer's block is history. You know, this is not an infallible technique. I'm not an expert and this is not gospel. But these 10 tricks and techniques have helped me immeasurably, especially when I was studying, and hopefully it can help someone else get out of a creative slump as well. Oh, and before I stop, bonus tip. Some people say it's great to write in absolute silence, and other people, like I mentioned Stephen King earlier, they like to write with music blasting so loud that they don't even have the quiet to think. But if neither of those work for you, try white noise. White noise creates like an empty space in your mind and it relaxes you. Apparently it's really good for concentration. And I often find, because I like rain generators, it creates sort of an atmosphere, a melancholy, which I like for my stories. If you pick something that is good for your stories, then you might even find it inspirational. So that's it. That's my 10 best tips. And that was quite a lengthy video. I'm pretty sure I could have shortened that a little bit, but I just wanted to tell you everything that I could think of. Good luck with your own writing. If you're doing NaNoWriMo month, then NaNoWrite month? If you're doing NaNoWriMo, then let me know in the comments below. If you have any tips or tricks of your own, I would love to hear about them. Until next time, Haunters, stay spooky and good luck writing.